All right. Welcome, everybody. Take two to episode 141 of The Glow. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of this co-creative community. We had an interesting technical error just a few minutes ago where all of a sudden everything went into colors and it said, what did it say? You don't have strong enough signal, but my signal, I have a full signal. So this is take two. And thanks for being here. I'm in Pennsylvania. It's just after noon, just after 12 p.m. here in the Eastern. My guest is Shawn King today. More about him in a moment. My name is Piergrossi, author of The Big Glow and The Wow and the Now, life coach, retreat facilitator, and now podcaster, vlogger, blogger. These are terms that 30 years ago people would have no idea what I'm talking about, and probably today some people still don't know what I'm talking about. But it's great to be here. We've had some great episodes the past few weeks, and I've had some great feedback on them. If you haven't seen them yet, had John Stringer last week with me, Dale Allen Hoffman the week before with me, and this week, hopefully, Shawn King will be with me. We're having some issues getting his camera hooked up here. When you're entering, if you could say where you're from. Love hearing where you're from. Hit the heart button. Hit the wow face. This is a space for co-creation. This is a space that welcomes your participation, that invites your participation. Welcome Annie from North Dakota, Jane from the UK, Hassan Vertizula Razak. Welcome to you. Welcome everybody for being here. The title of the episode is The Renaissance Man. And what I was sharing when we were discussing this earlier in the first take was this emphasis on all the parts of ourselves, on embracing all the parts of ourselves. Mind, body, spirit, emotion, work, finances. Welcome from Dubai. Thanks for being here. Community, family, spirituality, all these different components, and how these components are interrelated and connected, and making any one part stronger makes all the other parts stronger. Making any one part stronger makes all the other parts stronger. Welcome, Robin. And it creates this kind of exponential level of fulfillment when you're operating on all these different levels. And I was talking about how Shawn was one of the co-founders, or the co-founder with me, of the Big Glow community over 10 years ago, and how we've kind of, the intention, I would say, was community, was coming together with a community of people on this path together. And I feel like we've been creating that in different ways. I've been creating that in different ways. He has it over the years. And this has been a really beautiful way, because we connect here with people all over the world, and people can tune in, and there's experientially, there's something that can be felt in the connection between us, no matter what country we're tuning in from, or where we are, or how we're feeling, or how we're doing. When we create this level of presence together, this depth of presence, there's something exponentially more powerful, that arises, that could ever arise if we were in a sense of individuality and separation. So I really value this space together. I really value this space together because we're able to, from co-creative participation, we're able to have different angles and different perspectives on things that just expand our collective horizons from this depth of presence together. Depth of presence means being here and now, being in this moment together. So thank you all for being here together, right here and right now. We were talking about, I was talking about authentic relating. I was talking about authentic relating and how that's a passion that Shawn and I have discussed in a lot of detail over the years and have learned a lot from each other in that process, and how there's an exploration that we've gone into from relationship to relating. So relationship being a noun to relating being a verb. So relationship being a noun to relating being a verb. And the power that's inherent, the aliveness, the passion, the inspiration that's inherent when you change relationship to relating, when you change it from a noun to a verb. So relationship is a static, dead thing. Nouns are something that are considered to be inanimate, right? So it's something that we think of static. We think of a fixed idea that we're trying to get someone to conform to, or we're trying to get ourselves to conform to. That there's a conditional sense of something present there that we're trying to make happen. Whereas relating is something that's alive, that is not fixed, that is not set, that is a sense, that has a sense of evolution, that has a sense of movement, that has a sense of life, that has a sense of something that transcends any fixed ideas. So there's an openness there that invites one to be more present, that invites one to be more here, that invites one to be more connected. Because regardless whatever is arising, regardless of whatever you're feeling, regardless whatever the sensation is, whatever the movement is, you are relating. We're always relating. We're always in a sense of relating, right? So it allows you to open beyond your fixed ideas or your fixed notions of how you think something should be to an aliveness of what's present, of what's here and what's now. And that's not just in relationship, personal relationship, but that's in life. Like that's in the movement of life. So to be relating with life, you know, to be in a space of authentic relating in life. And that's really the essence of something. Just give me one moment. I want to check and see if I can find. Are we still here? Okay. So there's a sense of relating. Shawn's trying to find us on the on our. He's trying to find us on Facebook Live. If anybody has Shawn's, anybody can assist him with the Facebook Live movement. That would be great to get that happening. Annie, if you could, I don't know if you have his info, probably not, but if you could find him and try to help him to get on. There he is. I think we got him. I think he's coming on any moment here. So you just have to accept my invitation, Shawn, and we'll be live here together. There you are.
Hey, hello. How are you?
It wasn't easy, but here we are. We made it happen.
We finally made it. Yes. Aha.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Pardon me while I wiggle my phone into the correct orientation.
Yeah, likewise.
I was told that that I needed to actually be landscape, not portrait, but apparently that's wrong. It's the opposite. Right. So I think it has to match you or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know. The mysteries of Facebook.
Yes. Well, I guess we matched. Enough to make it happen.
Yes, finally.
Great shirt.
Thank you. I thought I'd be colorful for the broadcast here.
So I was just going into authentic relating and direct relating and relating in general, the sense of the shift from relationship as a noun to relating as a verb. And that's something that you and I have talked about and both appreciate, and love to hear your take or your feeling on how that's kind of shifted the way you look at things, changing relationship from relationship as a noun to relating as a verb.
A lot of what happens is sort of my attention shifts from a box full of objects, a box full of ideas about who someone is for me or to me, and shifts into more of a kind of an open field of attention that's ongoing with how a person's showing up, without a particular set of expectations in my own mind as to how they're supposed to behave towards me. And that really allows for much more freedom on my part, and also on the part of the person I'm relating to.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that there's like it allows for a deeper sense of intimacy too, right? Because you're able to actually like really see what's here, really hear what's happening, as opposed to trying to conform someone into this box of what the relationship is supposed to be.
Correct. You're actually able to listen to them without having an agenda behind the listening. Often, it's a person can fall into the trap of listening to someone define certain bits of information or whatever that help support the model or the box that they have for that person, rather than listening to get to understanding them as they are from their perspective clearly. So it's like it's possible to listen to someone as if you're gathering evidence for your own ideas about them, or gathering evidence for your own ideas about yourself, which is the other aspect. So you have to dismantle both. You have to dismantle your own ideas about yourself as well as your ideas about someone else to get those out of the way so that you can relate to someone.
That's deep. Dismantling your own ideas about yourself. That feels really true and profound, because everything is ultimately a self-reference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the thing that's interesting too is my mind first goes authentic relating as in terms of like husband and wife, or boyfriend and girlfriend, or two lovers, or people that are in a romantic relationship. But also there's some really big areas. Welcome, Melissa. There's some really big areas where this is really predominant that I see too, is like, for example, with your parents, with your mother, with your father, or the father and the mother with their children. These could be really deeply ingrained in the sense of, you're supposed to be like this and you're not being like this, right? As opposed to this sense of authentic, or this direct relating, or this sense of relating as a verb, as something that's alive. So yeah, that's like kind of a fascinating thing of how it can be in any realm, or even like, this is my boss, or this is my whatever. We put these people in these boxes and expect them to behave in a certain way because of the label that we've created on them.
That's correct. Looks like I need to plug in here. I'm going to have to go to handheld because my battery indicator is low. Either that,
yes,
or
the old battery.
The old battery thing. I'm going to see if I can just rotate all the way. Now you're upside down. Am I upside down for you?
You're upside down.
Oh, okay. All
like
right,
trippy.
Back around. All right, there we go. It's going to be kind of a handheld situation now. Let's see what I can do to this. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So being verb, the way I like to put it is that we are not even beings, we are becomings.
Yes.
We are opening processes as we move along. So to even think of a person as a being makes an object out of them. So then what becomes
something static.
Yes, something static. So then what becomes very interesting is, what is the nature of relating from a becoming to a becoming?
Yeah.
Right? And so what is happening in that? It becomes very dynamic. It becomes very present-based. But present-based not in a flighty sense, more in a sense of a dance or a walk together where you're actually really on two different paths. They might be really close to each other, and the paths might be ones that you wish to have close to each other. You're sharing intimate space and time with someone, and you wish to continue doing that, and they wish to continue doing that with you. And so you're kind of walking along together, but really your paths are slightly different, and you're diverging a little bit and coming back together and diverging a little bit. And so there's sort of this long-term potential for a walk together through life to develop with someone, which is part of how I understand my own marriage with Melissa, is that it's sort of a walk together of discovery, each of us discovering for ourselves and discovering with each other how relating unfolds for us, between us and other people. And so it becomes much freer feeling, much lighter feeling, even though it can be more intense. There's less burden that's carried along because you don't have boxes of objects that you have to haul along with you in order to function. And it does apply out to other types of relationships. I agree. I've had much better luck dealing with coworkers of various sorts, whether it's my boss, quote unquote, or other people that I'm collaborating with. If I understand them in terms of relating to their beingness and relating from beingness to beingness, or becoming to becoming, I do much better than if I'm trying to think of roles and, hey, you're supposed to be doing that, or you're supposed to be showing up for me this particular way, or whatever. It's kind of a waste of time. You know, the expectations and shoulds are barriers. They're things to put in the way with relating to someone, and become very powerful brakes on the process.
Now, one of the things people will say is like, okay, but what if does that mean somebody can do whatever they want? And what if they do something I don't like? And all this sort of inquiry, right? So my sense is it doesn't mean anything at all. It means direct relating, or authentic relating means if something's happening and you have a feeling of sadness, or you have a feeling of anger, or if you have a feeling of happiness or joy, then you communicate that in the moment. So there's no rules of like, it means you have to like what everybody does, or you have to just, everything they do is okay. It doesn't, ultimately, I guess there's kind of two levels. Ultimately, everything someone does is okay because it's happening. But then the response that arises in you is also completely valid and to be accepted.
Correct. I mean, whether, how someone feels about your response to their feelings, etc., that's the exploration. And then what stories are coming up? And what, are you discovering that, am I discovering that I have a story about myself or someone else in the process of relating? Am I discovering that I'm making an object out of a process? Am I discovering that I have an expectation, that I have an assumption? What am I discovering in the process of relating to someone else about myself and about the other person and about how I'm relating with them? And so there's this constant activity of discovering, and it becomes more about the discovering than it becomes about trying to classify, trying to judge things as good or bad, and those types of judgments become a much less of interest than, oh, what's actually happening here. And well, let me put it this way. Comfort's overrated. So trying to keep ourselves and each other comfortable tends to be poor strategy in life, because comfort and aliveness tend to be somewhat opposed to each other. They're like on a sliding spectrum. So if you move too far towards comfort, you start to lose your aliveness. So you have to give up some comfort to get more towards aliveness. Although that aliveness becomes more comfortable, sort of, but over time. So it's very worthwhile. But we're emotional beings. We're never going to be perfectly blissed out all the time and light and no, it's not going to happen. Anger and fear and other things that arise when they do. And what is of value to me is to move into a space of where this is interesting. Let me discover about this. Let me understand completely what's happening here. So that it won't happen over and over again the same way. It might happen differently some other time, but I don't get stuck. So
I think there's a lot of different things, sparked a lot of different things inside me, but the comfort thing, that's huge. I think, particularly in our culture, in our country, like sometimes I just sit back and I think like, what happened to America? I was like listening to this podcast I did this morning about kind of the late 1800s and the kind of just the mentality of that time and the kind of frontier energy um, and now it's like the priority it's in so many ways. I'm not saying 100%, but so many ways is like comfort. People want to be comfortable. If they're not comfortable, it's very upsetting. Like they deserve it, or they're entitled to this sense of round the clock comfort. Um, and and I think what you said is really profound. If there's first of all, it's not possible to have this kind of round unless you're dead, and that's kind of what people are moving towards is being dead,
Yeah,
right? So
dead
like
and
this
perfect are the
increasing level of deadness. What's
same.
that?
I said dead and perfect are about the same thing, really.
There's like this increasing level of yeah, as opposed to moving toward being more alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what ties into that is the sense of the unknown, right? I think that's an important component here. Unknown in relating, unknown in life, unknown in, moving throughout the day is the unknown for so many people has become uncomfortable. So there's a sense to want to know everything that's going to happen. I want to know everything you're going to do as my partner, as my child. I want to know everything that's going to happen today. But so we think that like through this accumulation of knowledge, we're going to destroy the unknown, or we're going to get rid of the unknown. And what we're really doing is just making ourselves more dead.
Exactly. Melissa quote to me, she might remember which one it is at one point, which was basically saying that freedom lies in the unknown. So there can't be freedom and a sense of freedom and an engagement with freedom unless you're also engaged with and open to the unknown, to mystery, basically. And this idea that we gain quality in life by piling on the details of knowledge about what's going to happen next doesn't hold up in my experience at all.
I think your signal got a little weaker, Shawn. I don't know if maybe because the Wi-Fi is being shared or something, but it's a little bit get a little choppy
Okay.
on your side as far as hearing you.
All right.
But I got some segments there.
Can you hear me
What
more
you're sharing
continuously now?
at the moment, yeah.
Okay. I was just
Yeah.
remarking on a quote that Melissa shared with me that is basically saying that freedom is located in the unknown. You can't have an experience of freedom unless you're willing to be open to the unknown.
Yeah.
And what I was saying about my own experience is that I've been finding over time that piling on information about my own day or whatever does not improve the quality of my experience at all. The knowing of what is happening next doesn't. Planning has pretty limited utility, really. It has some utility, but not very much. Not what we assign to it, by any means.
Yeah, I would agree with that on from my experience as well. I would agree with that. And how does that relate to? I know one of the things that you've explored is there's different terms for it, but let's call it voluntary simplicity. The sense of there's a sense of in our culture for so many people that more material thing, having more ownership of more possessions, more things is the better. The bigger is better, more is better. And from my conversations with you, you have a little bit of a different take on that. So please share with us.
Yeah, I think for myself, I'm looking to have a deeper, direct experience of process through what I have as opposed to accumulating things. It's like, use what you have and have what you can use, basically, which is actually really pretty minimal. And in my own life, if I'm paying attention to how much effort and time that goes into maintaining, paying for, putting away, taking out, cleaning up, whatever, many, many, many different kinds of objects, it actually occupies a lot of energy. So that's another way to look at it. It's like my own experiences, the quality of my life increases with my freedom to be active with less, my freedom to have more time and energy and attention for experiences. All of that can be blocked or have its quality eroded by having too many possessions and being too focused on possessions. So
There's an interesting thing you bring up to my conscious, which is there's also the level of engagement in what the experience is. So if I'm not really present or fully engaged with something, then I'll keep looking for another thing and another thing and another thing. But maybe if I really was fully, completely engaged in what was in front of me, then I wouldn't be looking for something else. It's really fascinating, how that can work.
that's right. If our appetites are attached to abstraction, things in our mind, as opposed to things that are right in front of us, of course, we're going to be pulling in and pulling in and pulling in objects into our lives. But in my own life, if my appetites are attached via my attention and engagement with what's right in front of me, whatever that, if I'm really taking fully into an experience, drinking from the spring that I'm at. When I'm at the spring, I drink. Whatever, when I'm sitting under a tree, or I'm in a movie theater, I'm reading a book, I'm playing a musical instrument, if I'm fully there, there's no appetite for anything else. There's no abstract thought of an appetite for anything else. I'm complete in the moment of that engagement. And so I like to use the word engagement because it's a description of action. And that's what it's about. It's a little bit different than doing. It's about how you're showing up inside a moment or an activity or presence. So I'm not recommending just get busier.
Yeah, right.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Kind of the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
You just reminded me of a great story with you, which relates to the next thing I was going to get into. So I was staying at your house. I would stay at Shawn's house, I would stay at your house, it seemed like annually around the early fall for however long it would be. But this one year I was there, and you and Melissa were in your bedroom, and I couldn't really hear any details, but I just heard a lot of, kind of voices being raised and a lot of energy inside there. What people would categorize as fighting, right? So didn't want to disturb, but I don't remember why, but something was the reason why I had to come in, I had to interrupt to ask for something. So I knock on the door, and you open up, and you had this really gentle kind of look on your face and tone, and you said, "I'm sorry, we're deeply engaged right now. If you just give us a few moments, we'll be right with you." I thought that was such a really beautiful way of describing that energy, deeply engaged. We were just talking about that last night too, of sometimes with if people are raising their voices, or it doesn't mean that they don't like you, or often it's the opposite. There's just a passion that's there. And so where that leads me to is this depth of engagement. My feeling is what I've realized is actually no matter what the experience is, if you deeply engage it, and we can't control what experience is going to arise next, right? But if you deeply engage it, there's a sense of what we could call freedom in that, a sense of a transcendent quality that's possible. Is that your experience?
Yeah, and I think when I'm deeply engaged, I'm making my choices moment to moment, and I'm free to make my choices moment to moment. I'm free to be expressed moment to moment, however imperfectly, etc. It's not necessarily comfortable, especially when you're talking about a situation that's typically, felt or understood as being conflicting. But then again, that goes back to our sort of unfortunate attachment to the idea of being comfortable all the time. And so you're trading comfort for energy and aliveness, and that's part of that when you're fully engaged. Um, yeah, there's nothing else quite like it, and it's also not about getting to a particular endpoint. It's just moving forward through the
Right.
and then seeing where you wind up. So
Right.
that's another thing is that I think people and myself in the past engage in a relating with an objective, an endpoint. It's like a
Yeah.
job done. A little bit different than that. Let's see where we are in a few minutes here as we engage with each other, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
fully, right?
Yep.
And then what
Yeah,
people
it's like if you really give yourself fully engaged each step, there's sort of a guarantee that it's interesting. It's almost like, well, not that I'm saying anything necessarily new. There's a lot of teachings or sayings about how the journey, it's about the journey, not the destination, right? But it
right?
really is true. It's like when you really become engaged, it's like the journey itself is fulfilling. It's kind of like when I did this road trip across the country from the East Coast to the West Coast. You know, I could have been like, well, the goal is to get to the Pacific Ocean and everything sucks until I get there and let's, haul ass and make it happen. But really, the whole beauty of it was the journey. The end point was great too. But it's really recognizing that journey itself was the fulfilling thing, not just let me try to get to this end point as fast as I can. We're really missing life when we get lost in our head that way.
Mm-hmm. We miss everything that's actually happening and trade everything that's actually happening for something that's abstract that might happen sometime later.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I see
it's
Melissa posted destination is just another point along the journey. I
mm-hmm.
think that's a really profound statement because yeah, wherever I think there's no end point. Like wherever like I've had these kind of goals, and like you're working, you hit that goal, and it's like there's this moment of kind of exaltation, and then it's like, okay, well, now what? Still alive, still here. It's really
Mm-hmm.
just a resting point along an infinite journey that's unending.
Absolutely.
Road trips are really good analogy. Slow down and see what's happening, says Melissa. Thanks, Melissa, for being here. Let's read some of these other comments. Robin says, my brother pointed out once that so often each person is not trying, so often each person is trying to say, hey, wait, I'm okay. Wherever you are, be there, be here, yes. Robin says, it feels so much better to be okay with not knowing, especially to admit that I really don't know how a lot of things, and to be okay with learning new things with everyone. In Orange County, it felt like there was tons of doing, but not so much being, for myself included. Yeah, so it's a really whoa, sorry about that, folks. It's a really beautiful thing, the sense of it's almost like the Zen quality of just really opening yourself to the moment. But to open yourself to the moment, you have to let go of your ideas, or at least be aware of your ideas, of how you think it's supposed to be, of how you think it's not supposed to be. And I find like that's the key in relating. That's the key in just. There's also with the way a term I use sometimes is relationship with the moment, or relating with the moment, right? So it's like. This is what's happening, and you can think that it shouldn't be happening, or you can wish that it shouldn't be happening, or this is wrong, but it's really you're just wasting energy because this is what's happening, you know. So I find that like that realization really opens us up to a deeper level of intimacy with in relationship with another, a deeper intimacy with life. Right, and one of the things that you've kind of what's the word in a profound way have described to me is how you find working with earth and building as a way of exploration into intimacy, right?
Absolutely. It's process of intimacy with itself. Part I both teach and guide people into learning techniques and about materials, but really in a natural building workshop context. We offer workshops and teach workshops. But underneath there's an underlying agenda, if you would, or idea that we're going to bring people into intimacy with Earth, with their own process of sheltering, with how they use space in their life, etc. So there's the type of building I like to do with Cobb is very interesting. You literally get barefoot and dance around in wet, squishy mud, and that's how you mix your building material. You put it up with your hands. You're creating sculpture that you're going to inhabit. It's entirely your fingerprints and your footprints in it. Bits of sweat and skin are included in the building, yours or anyone else who's helping you. It's communal. People can join you. It's pretty fun. You can put on some music and dance to make the material, etc. There's a very direct sense of intimacy with some shelter, which is actually a process, how we create and inhabit structures for whatever reasons we do is a process. It's not just objects. Again, we always get back to non-objectness, as Melissa and I like to say. Our language and mind tendency to create objects out of everything in our life experience. Not very useful, really. So it's sheltering and creating shelter as a process. Very intimate connection with earth and materials, and the physicality of building and the physicality of inhabiting a space. It's not just a box that you fill with your stuff. You're actually creating and sculpting space around your own activities and needs. And it's a very beautiful process that has profound effects on a person.
Had some breakup there, but we got most of it. And I think you touched on something that really kind of sparked a deeper way of feeling something. What I hear you saying is that when you create a shelter, you create a home, we think of it as a noun, as an object, but actually even taking that kind of veneer off and realizing that that's a noun too. And then there's this deeper level of, sorry, that's not a noun, it's a verb, not a noun. And there's this deeper level of relating with what is your home, especially if you're creating it with your hands, if you're working with the earth. There's a sense of deep intimacy with the space that you're inhabiting. And I really love that feeling of like which is true. I mean, it's scientifically true. It's scientifically and spiritually true that the home that's encasing you is alive, right? It is something that's in movement, that is in motion, and you're in a living relationship with your home, just like you're in a living relationship with any structure, like you're in a living relationship with any human being, and you're in a living relationship with the earth, and your home is made of particles. Your home is made of the earth, right?
Right. In this case, it's a very direct thing. And in
Yeah.
fact, I find it's impossible to engage with any structure or have structure show up in my own life without being in relation to an activity of that structure. So I think there's a mental, I've been trained professionally in schools, whatever, to take the structure as permanent and solid and real and where you focus your attention, as opposed to the process of engaging with the structure. In this case, it's going the opposite. You start with the process and you wind up with the structure. You don't even necessarily draw floor plans completely or have a finished model or certainly not a blueprint. You're creating a structure, if you're building this way, if you're a person building this way. What's emerging is sort of a reflection of your own journey and not so much a solid expression of a plan that existed a year ago. You started. Right? So very, very different feeling. It's a different feeling.
What's that?
I said, how's the clearer?
Better that time. It still could be a bit better. I'm not really sure what the reason is.
Mm.
Um, so just if any way you could have a stronger signal, I guess that would be the primary reason.
Mm-hmm.
But it feels like it's like, yeah, this organic building. And Robin's saying she'd like to see some examples. Maybe we could put up some photos then later on.
Mm-hmm.
And Melissa says another good analogy for intimate relating between people, which is what I was thinking too. It's interesting how the two like are very parallel each other in how it operates and how it works.
Mm-hmm. We exist in relational fields. I exist in relational fields. That's my moment-to-moment awakening consciousness, is existing in relational fields of all kinds, in every type. There's almost nothing else happening.
And
So
it's continual too. It's every moment.
Absolutely. There's always an unfolding.
Yeah. And I think when you realize that, like I tell people sometimes, the the time, if I think of the time where I felt the loneliness, the most lonely, or the loneliest in my life, there was a couple times where I was in a giant big city, millions of people, and I felt like I was alone. I was by myself, in the sense of I wasn't with any friends or you know, anyone else. And so I felt really alone. I felt a sense of loneliness. And then the times where I felt most connected in my life, a lot of those times were there was no human beings around at all. I was sitting in the forest, sitting in nature by myself, and I felt so absolutely connected to everything, you know. So what that pointed out to me was it's not so much like what's out here, but more what's happening in here. Now, I will say nature is a tremendous source of inspiration to feel connected, so that definitely helps. And I think it's really important to spend time in nature. But it is possible to feel connected in any moment, because you're connected. Everything is moving and in relationship to you. And so if you just tune into being present, there's a sense of, there's a sense of everything being interrelated, interconnected, and you being a part of that movement, in this moment right now. And I think that's really a huge shift in consciousness, when you realize that, so much of what you're looking for is an inside from the level of consciousness, and not something that's outside of yourself.
That's correct. And I want to draw attention to the noting of nature as essential for perhaps understanding that state. And Melissa's making the comment, so much company beyond human. It really is company. And something very special is happening existentially when we understand this. When I understand that connectedness on an experiential level, when I'm in a natural setting, quote, natural, unquote. In other words, context populated by beings with their own stories that have nothing to do with our agendas. We aren't making them, we aren't directing them, they're just there. That is company in the way of, like myself going out into a public place or a restaurant that's jubilant and full of energy and lots of activity. And every person in that space is on their own storyline. And I can greet them and I can get to know them, and maybe we'll share some energy back and forth. Maybe we'll collaborate in some way. We'll braid or twine our stories together for a while, or maybe not. But I'm not controlling any of them, managing them, managing me. So that gets amplified to an infinitude when I am in a natural setting, quote unquote natural, in the forest, and I'm surrounded by beings that aren't human, by becomings that aren't human. So I have another side project that the working called Deep Abundance, the book project, that's about this phenomena, and it's basically going to be a guided journey into that awareness for anyone in any context. in the form of a book and also some online presences that will be collaborative. Books are non-collaborative. You create and deliver. And they're collaborative in the sense that the reader's own imagination brings the story alive, or what the reading alive. However, there's a whole nother level, obviously, when you have an online site where people can add comments and can communicate back and forth in real time. So it'll be a tool aspect. But that's another little project I have on the side, my Deep Abundance project. And it's about that kind of experience and guiding people into it. I want to be their guide into creating that experience for themselves in all contexts, with the natural, quote unquote, context being sort of the catalytic container.
Right.
Understanding the what's available.
Mm. I like this phrase that Melissa, the deep abundance.
Mm-hmm.
I like that phrase a lot. You spoke to me a lot about the time that you spent. Is it Cobb Cottage? Is that what it's called in Southern Oregon?
Correct.
Yeah, the time that you spent there and how profound it was for you and kind of on your path. I'd love to hear you speak about that for a moment.
Well, what it was I thought I was taking a workshop on learning how to build, which to a certain extent I was, with this building material called cob. And it was 10 days in the woods of Oregon. And I hadn't really realized that I was actually stepping into a completely different context and consciousness than what I was familiar with, living in suburban and urban environments. And it was an environment where you leave cars behind. You actually, there are no cars on the site, even though there are kitchens and houses people live in and that sort of thing. You can't drive your car up to one of them. You have to walk into the woods to get to them. It was a context where everything that was happening, or nearly everything that was happening, was from what was there that was alive and emerging in that location. The soil, the trees, the materials that were available for sheltering were all present in their own space. And so your relationship with my relating to them was very, very, very direct. I'm digging the soil that I'm going to be using to build. I'm cutting the branch. I'm doing the harvesting. Nothing's abstract. It's not about numbers. It's all about your physical contact, my physical contact with the materials, and the people. And partway through this process, the master teacher there, one of the master teachers there, Yanto Evans, he and his wife founded the school, took us on a forest walk in which we were invited to not use any wood, any words whatsoever.
I'm only hearing like every third word you're saying. Just so you know.
Okay.
This whole section that you just started talking.
Okay, Melissa's alerting me that my audio is very poor. Are you able to hear my words, or are you missing a lot?
It's been a bit challenging, but I'm with you right now. I can hear you now. Yeah, any way that it could be improved would be great.
Okay, I'll try getting closer to the phone.
Okay.
Maybe improve it. So the lead teacher, Ianto, the elder teacher there on that particular course, took us on a forest walk, in which we were invited to leave our words behind. We were to communicate with each other only by facial expression and by sharing materials and experiences along the route. And that was a very profound experience, to completely encounter beings in that environment without the use of language to objectify or categorize. So hold on a second. I'm going to coordinate with Melissa here for a moment.
So while you guys are in discussion, technically, I'll just share some things, reflections on that.
Okay.
I think that's really profound, what you're stating about to be able to view something and make a distinction between the categorization, the labeling, and what you're noticing. And what I found, I think what I used to do was try to like get rid of the categorizing or get rid of the labeling or make it disappear, because I thought that was like the spiritual thing to do. But I'm not trying to make anything disappear anymore, make anything go away. It's more just increasing level of self-awareness. So when I can be able to perceive and then notice the distinction between what's being perceived and the labeling what the mind does, or the categorization the mind does, and say, okay, well, that's not what this is. So it's okay that the mind's doing that, or if it's not doing it, that's great too. But if it is doing it, to notice that that's what it's doing, and that's not the essence of what's really here. It's more of, it's like a secondary tool, so to speak, right?
The name is not that which is named. It is only the name.
Yeah. Right.
So, and that was the part of the exercise of letting go of the words, was to stop that process as much as possible for the time that we were walking in the forest. It's a famous part of those courses. People come out of the woods and they either decide to have a different life, or they don't get it, and they're kind of like a little bit lost for the rest of the course. So it's sort of a watershed moment in that way. Quite a few people come out of the forest in tears and kind of shaken by their experience, and do decide to change their lives, and they become teachers or leaders in some way, or that would never have happened without that experience. I would say my Deep Abundance book was born from that experience, although that project takes from my entire life experience and will draw upon it. That was the catalytic moment that crystallized everything that I had to offer in that realm. And so its power is amazing. And Brian, I know that we've gone on walks like that in the Big Low Retreat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we typically, in many cases, the retreat environments have been chosen for access to natural environments to walk in and to experience directly.
Yep.
So that's part of the Big Low process also. Big Low Retreat process.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember too, when you got back from that, because I bring this up because I think it's a common thing that happens. There's a process I call it integration, essentially. So you'll have this a profound sense of, let's say, absolute truth, or whatever word, reality, whatever word we want to use. None of these words are maybe quite right, but it's pointing at something that's beyond the mind, right? Mm-hmm. So then you kind of come back to this world meaning society, come back to the society. And I remember it was very difficult for you for a while. You were really struggling with even wanting to be in society at all, and maybe just kind of going back to the forest, but apparently you're in society on some level. So yep. What was that integration process like for you?
Well, first it was quite comical. I was coming back from Oregon on it's an 8-hour so drive, and I drove directly from that experience to my wife's performing at a karaoke contest at a LGBTQ bar in Sacramento, which was about as far from being in the woods in Oregon as I could possibly get. And then waking up the next morning at roughly 5 o'clock in the morning at first light, because that's what I was used to now from this workshop, was getting up and going to bed, and going out into the backyard and sort of wandering around lost, like, what can I do? What can I do? Barefoot, trying to move some sticks around or find some mud to step in or something that was familiar, that felt right. So it was kind of it was a difficult integration, because I had developed this deeply quiet and sensual connection with actual physical natural space, soil and plants, which are present in a yard in suburbia. You got this stuff, right? Some of this experience is available. You can go out your door and dig and dance and arrange things into something that's shelter or sculpture, or in our case, we built an earthen oven to bake bread in first from our local materials. So there was this process of reintegrating what was actually present where I lived normally with my experience in this very different context in the woods of Oregon, and continuing to be able to be active with that very physical and sensual connection with natural space. So it took a little while. I got less interested in noisiness and speed, technology, as they say, modern technology, all of those things had much less appeal to me. I was much more interested in being in my backyard and listening and feeling and smelling smells and being present with that environment than I was in any other environment that was available to me.
And let's get into relationship a bit more. You're the third guest I've had on in 3 weeks in a row who's had as a part of a long-term marriage or long-term relationship, and I think that's something that people are interested in. People are interested in how to have that or how to maintain that or how to assume that's fulfilling in that regard. So yeah, a couple questions. One is you practice something you call open relating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that, open relating and direct relating, and how that works for you and your partnership?
Well, we don't have a particular assumption of the content of our relating with other people or with each other. So we don't, when we got married, we developed a ceremony for ourselves, which included what we call blessing intentions. So they weren't promises per se, but they were more like blessings to live into or intentions to live into going into the future. And one of them was to remain love open. In other words, to recognize when we felt love for someone else, to be honest with each other about that and to allow it essentially to happen both in terms of our own hearts, not getting ourselves, either me getting myself or her getting herself into a space of guilt or hiding around it. And then also allowing us to actually engage with another person and relating to another person in a way that was natural and organic with that relating, regardless of the fact that we were married and we had this long-term intention of journeying together through life. So what that means is that as we encounter other people in our lives, as I encounter another person in my life, I can freely acknowledge what's true and real for my feelings towards that person and their feelings towards me, or how we're relating, how we're interacting, and that the space is open for that. The space is held open for that within our marriage.
And so I think, would you say that for the two of you, that can be potentially, I'm just asking, I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe a more challenging road, but also maybe create a deeper sense of intimacy for you because you're sharing everything openly, where other people may be hiding things or trying to be secret about things or not talk about things.
Correct. I would say that for my own experiences, my sense of intimacy with Melissa is empowered, is powered up and deepened and sustained to a much greater degree by our understanding of this openness than it would be if either of us held more closed ideas about what was possible and acceptable within the marriage and the marriage relating.
Beautiful. Yeah. So that's. Go ahead.
It is very challenging. It's not comfortable. Very difficult emotional experiences happen. And they happen in a way where the process to engage with them is one of exploration and discovery and having to uncover, unfold, share more, go through. The way past is through is one way I like to put it. So the idea that we get past something by avoiding it or going around it in a relating doesn't usually work for me. It's like the way past is through it. I have to go through it. And I challenge myself quite frequently inside my relating with Melissa in those realms. And it is not comfortable and it's difficult, not pretty some of the time. Let's put it that way. I have to be prepared to be fairly humble and human and sloppy and just kind of not my perfect self as I imagined I might be, or whatever. All of that has to be put away and let go of in order to allow the open process to happen.
And the process of openness and direct relating and sharing whatever's arising authentically moment by moment, the sense of intimacy is maintained. I think that's the part that I find, because people, go back to what we've been talking about as a theme throughout, our conversation here, is people want to feel connected. They want to feel connected. And it's like, it's so like, what's the word? Like, ultimately it's so simple, but yet I know it can be very challenging for us, but to connected is just to be connected to whatever's happening right now, right?
That's
whatever
right.
you're feeling, whatever your desire is, whatever your emotion is. And I think people have this idea that, oh, I'm a spiritual person, so I can only have these kind of feelings, or I can only have these kind of desires, or I can only have this kind of relationship. And all of that is bullshit. All that's going to be exploded. And the deepest connection is really whatever is happening right now, and no one knows what's going to happen.
Right. What's going to happen is there's going to be an explosion followed by a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm really liking what Melissa's saying right now. And I'm going to risk touching my phone there. Yes, there we go. Just to be clear, getting through is not necessarily the goal. Right. The idea there is that you're in is what you're doing. Intimacy is in. You're getting into it.
Yep.
So that's the going through. There's travel. This too shall pass. The old Buddhist idea. There's going to be movement, but the moment to moment is in. Engagement is in. Right. So where disconnect actually happens is where something rigid is brought into the way of a flow, and there's incredible pressure built up, and then there's a rupture. And the intensity of that rupture can cause someone to decide, okay, I'm going to disconnect now. I can't stand it. Terribly uncomfortable. This is not what I wanted. This isn't working out. I need a change of relationship, blah, blah, blah. Boom, they're gone, they're out. Then they're probably going to go build the same structure again somewhere else, or maybe.
Right.
Or have a different,
the same inanimate object.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or the same process even, just like, okay, I'm going to put something away, the pressure's going to build up, boom, there's going to be a rupture, and then no more intimacy along this path. I'm no longer walking beside this person through my life. And what I'm hoping to create continually in an ongoing basis with Melissa is more and more capacity to have this incredible aliveness and this incredible moment-to-momentness work without the disconnecting explosions. And it isn't always a disconnecting explosion that results in, an overt breakup. It might just be a withdrawal. I'm in fact kind of discovering this right now. It's like, for me, it can be like, okay, now I'm going to be depressed for the rest of the day and I don't really want to talk to anybody.
Yep.
And I'm gone, essentially. It's like a micro. And with anybody, it doesn't necessarily have to be with Melissa. It might be if something goes on in work and I'm just like, oh, that was terrible, and whatever. There's some sort of, or with a friend, and I'm depressed and upset, and my thoughts are all dark and they're spinning around or whatever. Well, that's been a rupture. That's been a leaving of the process of relating with that person or that situation. So that's the idea, is to get into it and stay alive and stay and be sloppy. Don't be rigid. Let your body, contort into shapes that aren't pretty so that you can stay in. Right?
Robin says, Paul and I are open about when we really enjoy other people, but both of us like the concept of being physically intimate only with each other, unless or until either of us chooses to move on to someone else. It works for us because it's what we each want. I think we've found we have more time for our careers this way, and our careers are really important to us too. Just if you have any thoughts on that comment. My initial sense is great. Like, my feeling is whatever works for people and it's fulfilling for them, I'm always in support of.
Yeah, I'd agree. And you know, I like to share and to some degree advocate the processes and the way that the direct relating that Melissa and I do. And that's our particular creation. So
Yep.
understand that different things work for different people.
Yep. One thing we haven't gotten into at all, which was initially going to be one of our primary focuses, there you go with plans, was men's issues and your men's integrity circle. And what would you like to share about that?
Okay, well, I'll try and keep it brief because we've been together for quite a while. But just recently, I stumbled into a new set of projects, and it would be a long story to describe how I went from, Thursday, no idea that anything like this would be happening, to Sunday. I've got 2 spaces created on Facebook and a full set of intentions around them. Basically, I became very interested in issues of masculinity and how that relates to my day-to-day functioning, how I am being, how I'm showing up in all the different ways that I show up in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I also got very interested in accountability because I found that most of what was being offered in terms of normal forms of accountability were something was missing. It bothered me. I didn't resonate with them, and what I felt was that most of the average typical ways of people offering accountability to one another, it's sort of like pleasing the teacher. Do this thing, my state, and the other person is supposed to be your teacher who says, "Okay, it's your project is due. Did you do it?" "Yes, I did it." Whatever. I get kind of tired of that. Those are all externalities. I'm interested in individual integrity. And how I'm showing up moment to moment in my life with whatever it is I'm engaged with. So what could I offer men who are in general, and also men specifically who are offering things to other men, whether it's retreats or coaching or whatever, there would be an accountability space for men by men that had to do with not just, oh, I said I was going to do this thing and here it is, I did it. Give me a good grade, teacher, type of thing, to the deeper levels of accountability. So that's what masculinity, the men's integrity circle is about. It's an accountability space, and it's a completely private group where I'm interested in inviting in men who are offering things to other men in terms of workshops or coaching or whatever. Now, I also created a space to explore issues of masculinity and masculine energy. What does that mean? How is masculinity as an energetic, if you would, related to our individual healthiness in our lives and effectiveness in our lives, etc., whether we are male or female in the way that we understand ourselves. So, and that is,
I think that's a really rich subject. Which it came up last episode, and it also was running out of time. And this time it's coming up too. But I feel like it's really something to it's a really important issue to delve into. So I feel like we're sparking that, and we're going to get into it more and more. And I had the question of the deeper level of accountability. What is the deeper level of accountability?
The deeper level of accountability is what is my internal process, not what my external achievement is, but what is my internal process? How clear am I? What is the nature of the choices I'm making? What am I feeling? How is my awareness and thinking around things going, etc.? It's accountability on that level. So you've seen a couple of my example posts now because you are a member of that integrity circle. So I think you can probably understand a little bit about what I mean by that. Mm-hmm. Really, I'm allowing you to fully see my whole experience, including the things that are sloppy or uncomfortable or difficult or private or whatever, so that you have your capacity as a man to help inform me about the integrity or healthiness of what you see, not in a judgmental level, but just more in terms of a workability, sensibility, your instincts around from your own experience.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's interesting because like this question Robin has is, are you? Does it mean are you being true to yourself? And that is kind of what it means, right? It's like you have this sense of because it's not like, well, Dad wants me to do this, so I have to do it. It's like there's something that you feel inside yourself, so you want to be accountable to yourself. And then in a group setting, my sense is I would need to get, I would want to, and yeah, I want to feel like I have a sense of what that person is wants to be accountable to in themselves, right? So it's ultimately it's a self-referral to be accountable to something inside yourself as something outside of yourself, right?
Essentially, it's about
But
opening internal process, sharing it, and allowing each other to the members of the group to provide. Uh, because I want to get away from that. I think that's one of the problems we have with our society is I'm very interested in sovereignty and individual sovereignty, how we function as sovereign, creative individual beings
yep,
and becoming.
yep,
So if we're
yep,
focused on achievement, we can enter a relational field, if you would, which is about pleasing the teacher. It's about
yep,
creating something that's consumed or understood or witnessed or something by someone else. And that's
yep,
fine. Participate in the world this way, but it's necessary, but it's not sufficient to me. I want to look at
yep.
the whole process of what's going on inside a person and how that's being guided and how
Mm,
masculinity and ideas about masculinity and masculine energy relate to that. And so that's what
beautiful.
that's for. And then the masculinity space, which is an open, it's just a blog where anyone can go there, which I believe you supplied a link to. It's masculinity space on
Yeah,
Facebook. You can find it.
yeah. There is two links right below for Shawn to connect. There's some things for plugging some things I'm doing as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Always great to connect, my friend. Beautiful, beautiful to share it here and beautiful to share with other people. I really appreciate it. And I love you and have a beautiful rest of your day. Give a hug to your daughter for me and Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
And we will talk to you soon.
We will see and talk to you very soon as well. Love you, brother. Thank you for
All right.
this.
Love you too. Thank you, Shawn.
Care.
Thanks, everybody. Got to run. Have a beautiful rest of your day. This will be available on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes. Love you, Melissa. Love you, everybody. See you soon in the next Now.